So are you telling me I should have shot my shots?
Ife, you have a younger brother.
Age is nothing but a number. What? I'm a vampire.
I believe in equal rights for women, and I also believe that a man is the head of the house, so we need to draw our limits somewhere.
It feels so good. Now can I do my jam now?
Yeah, you can.
Thank you.
You are still watching Nigeria Decides on Plus TV Africa. Governor El-Rufai had on the eve of election, the postponed presidential election, announced that 66 persons were killed in a reprisal attack in the area.
And he has received a whole lot of criticism on how he has handled the issue. We still have Peter in the house to look at this situation, as well as Fumi Ayola Dosumu, the YPP aspirant House of Representatives of Surulere constituency. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, Peter, for still staying with us.
Thank you.
Now, security agencies in Kaduna State confirmed the mass killings of Fulanis in Kajuru local government area of the state, and they pegged the figure, the Nigerian army pegged the figure at 66. Police did not state any details about the casualty. There are a whole lot of sketchy information, but the criticism that has come so far is that why has that number come from the governor instead of the police?
I think we should start by asking why the report came this late. I mean, this happened Sunday, Monday, and then it was on Friday that the governor. Why did they keep it sealed for so long? And
I remember even the initial figures were still pegged at 10, 15.
Yeah, 10, 15, and then all of a sudden the figures rose to 66. We should first of all, let me start by commiserating with the families of the bereaved. But the truth of the matter is that right now the details are so sketchy that we cannot even be sure that those killings actually took place. We have people who have said they've contacted friends and family in that area, and they say that, you know, they have no such information about any such killings. So where do we go from there?
I think, first of all, the governor has had a reputation for speaking out of turn, if I would say that, and I say that with respect. But this is a man who, a few days prior to this incident, in making his point known that he wouldn't love for there to be foreign interference in elections, which is not a bad thing to say, went on to use the term body bags. And that caused a conflagration across nations. I know dignitary was supposed to come into Nigeria, but was advised by his government not to come in at the time because of that sort of statement. And over time, we've known him to be, let me be more civil. But yes, so over time, I think he shouldn't have been the one to say that. Now, in security circles, there's a phrase we use: loose lips sink ships. Typically, when there's an incident like that, it's the security agencies that come out to make a statement. Typically, the police spokesman for that state will make a statement, and not the governor.
But the police has been vocal about how arrests have been done. We've had 6 arrests being made connected to this killing, but hasn't come up with the casualty figure. So then why do we have this culture of silence? We sideline or we hush whatever we want to and then highlight the ones we don't want to, especially from our security apparatus? That is unethical behavior, wouldn't you say?
Yes. But I mean, we're in a war, whether we like it or not. There's a war on terror ongoing, and each war is fought according to the strategies available to the leaders of that war, the commanders on both sides. Now, knowing the aim of terrorists, and those who are violent extremists is to instill fear, to cause havoc, to inflate figures. So sometimes we hear of an incident and we think, oh, the numbers are this much. But even from a professional standpoint, I've found out that most of the time, the numbers might be less. And because those numbers are often less, it's not good to just join the terrorists in the agenda unknowingly by inflating those figures. So security agencies might use the strategy of trying to downplay what has happened in the hope that it doesn't scare people more than it should.
But the thing is, if this had happened on a Sunday, why wait all the way till Friday to, I mean, as much as possible, if not for anything, for the families of those who have been killed, or just to alert people so that they can be, you know, safe and keep away from those areas. Why keep it? Was it meant, because there's so many reactions. Khan has reacted and said the DSS and the IG should, you know, investigate this. Why did you keep it hushed? Does this mean that it was supposed to be some form of political propaganda? Because even when the speech was being made, the issue of Fulani was really highlighted.
Yes.
It wasn't about human beings being killed. It was about Fulanis. I mean, why does that have to be the case?
This is, go ahead, please.
First of all, if the real story, well, the story that eventually came out was that it was a reprisal attack. That on Sunday night they had attacked the Mara people, and so they now did a reprisal attack on the Fulanis. That was really, so it wasn't a case of that the Fulanis were just killed. This was, and I think it dates back to as far back as October last year when they killed Galadima.
Yes.
No, I think it's something that has been building up since then. So it's not something that is new, which is why the government, which is why I'm wondering why the government kept it.
But the government has said that, well, they've denied that that killing of Galadima had anything to do with ethnic or religious undertones.
Yes, what were you expecting? The reason I'm saying this is because he mentioned terrorists. And I know that this really isn't a terrorist thing. It's more of ethnic, tribal, and religious. I mean, let's put aside, this is Christian against Muslim. So there's no way you can do away with the religious part of it. That's the honest truth. You know, so if the Fulanis had attacked the Christians and they decided to attack back, now the governor is using it as a political weapon. That is why I have the problem.
Because, you know, a lot of people are also blaming it on the fact that he made... I remember I did an interview with him some time ago, and we were talking about the issue of sensitive statements, you know, the issue of communal clashes, and there have been people, Niger Middle Belt Elders Forum have actually pointed fingers at the governor, saying that he's stoking the fire. He makes statements that, you know, causes more of these, you know, pockets of violence. And he did have a response. I wish we could play that video, but I'm sure as we're going on, we'll look for that video where he tried to explain about the issue of infighting, and he said he was looking at a situation where we could take, you know, this religious sentiments off the table and we see each other as one. But my question was, how do you do this when you seem to be the one in the center of all of this? So how do you unify a people when you have, because he's saying it's something he inherited from 40 years ago, and he cannot change anything in the less than 4 years that he's been in office. How do we handle this situation? Because Kaduna has been a hot spot for a long time.
Yes, it has. I think, like I've heard it said, that everything rises and falls on leadership. He evidently isn't doing as good a job as he should do with the statements he's making. I mean, violent extremism, and I want to separate that from outright terrorism, because violent extremism feeds the ranks of terrorists. Now, it's issue. For instance, the Southern Kaduna People's Union leaders have come out to say that on that Sunday, it was their people who were attacked, and 10 to 11 of that number were killed.
Not 66.
Not 66. Now, the governor didn't make a statement. No, the Southern Kaduna people are saying their own people were slain as well. And the governor didn't make a statement about their losses. And then, with figures flying from out of space, as it were, that he just conjured, he comes out to make a public statement that when the police hasn't made that statement, and I'm pretty sure that national security apparatus would have frowned upon the governor's actions if he's called for a meeting. You don't say things like that. You ought to be more sensitive. You ought to be more. You don't expect people to just abandon their fears when you're the one igniting those fears. So I think leadership in that state, for instance, he's not done such a good job in leading the people in that wise.
Mariana had earlier said that, well, the Southern Kaduna People's Union has said that, well, the IGP and then the SSS are supposed to conduct independent investigation. Yeah. But at the end of the day, my question still stands that why is the governor the one having to reel out the figures?
I really don't know. For instance, he said something. He said his. I mean,
it's simple.
We can assume that.
But we have security on the ground. But we have security on the ground.
Yes.
Who are supposed to be the first people on hand to say we're on top of the matter. They're supposed to have a press briefing and let people know these people are in hospital. Investigations are ongoing. These are the numbers we have been able to confirm. Not the governor. So if you say it's political. Our security apparatus is compromised.
No, the governor is
what you're trying to say?
Of that state. So he can kill a story. He can tell them, hold the story until I'm ready. Yes, it's the chief. And
I agree with you. I agree with you.
I'm sorry. As much as a governor is the #1 security officer of any state, does not mean that he can interfere, because the commissioner of police in every state reports to the IGP, and we all know this. He has no such powers to kill a story when security has the powers to do whatever it is and keep the people informed as to bloodshed of that nature.
But the police didn't get into it until after he made his statement. If you notice, it was after that the police started saying we're investigating. Went on. Yes, before then the police was completely silent on the case.
But beyond sentiment, do you necessarily think that this figure 66 is exaggerated?
My training teaches me to believe that it's exaggerated. As a security personnel, I mean, from working in security community for over a decade, I worked at the highest levels as well too. I believe the numbers might be exaggerated. Over time, I haven't seen what has happened in different places.
Is it because of who it came from?
But do you then think that was supposed the supposed exaggeration was supposed to have been used as a tool to ensure that this election was actually postponed? Because some school of thought has said, well, the bigger the number, then you raise the issue that security is not so strong enough to be able to conduct elections. I mean, on the eve of the elections, I doubt that would have been a major factor in deciding whether or not the elections were going to hold in Kaduna. Now, in the larger scheme of things, if you want to look at it from a prism or perspective, it goes down to leadership. So, for instance, you have a national security advisor, you have intelligence community, you have a whole architecture for security in this country. And if a governor keeps making these errors in judgment in terms of saying what he ought not to say, he ought to have been called to order. And then it takes me back to an interview that the current president gave when he was asked why he hadn't replaced the service chiefs, seeing the losses that our troops, our army, our armed forces are incurring at the front lines in the battle against terrorism. And the president said, I paraphrase, that he doesn't want to replace the current set of leaders because, the top brass, because he's not sure that the officers who will take over from them will not be given towards the takeover of the country. And if that's rewarding failure, if they failed on, and one of the reasons, or one of the campaign highlights of their campaign in the run-up to these elections, or when they came into power, was that they would provide security. Many people believe that this government would excel or do better than the previous government in providing security, and they failed in that regard.
No, to be honest, they started off very well. Somewhere along the line, let's be fair.
Okay.
They started off, well, we had Boko Haram, it was dwindling.
No, it wasn't. They said they were technically defeated. They were not technically defeated.
Let's be fair. Initially, they started off well. Along the line,
information available to me disputes
that. Things go down south, because initially the concentration of insecurity was just within the northeast, and now it has spread its tentacles.
So kidnappings, we can't necessarily say cultism activities. And yet Boko Haram was repelled to an extent, but we also saw how our troops were being somewhat massacred. So again, the winning was cut short somewhat.
Yes, as I said, they started well, but somewhere along the line,
let me I don't want to give away some information, but if you look at it, you remember when this government assumed power or came to office, one of the things that they did was they did certain things that regarded explained to the gallery in our system. So they moved the theater of operations of the Nigerian army to Maiduguri because it was believed that's where the hotbed of terrorism was. But from other information available to other security, to other members of the security community, not just Nigeria, these things were not in that region. You had the borders that were porous. The government did little or nothing to secure those places. So while it seemed to the public that they were mopping up the crisis center, other places were being opened, and you don't fight a war like that.
But the president speaking, sorry, David, the president speaking with Dashawala and CNN did say that we could see that at the time they came into office, Boko Haram had their stronghold in the northeast. And they had about how many local government areas? But as we speak, they barely have one. And for him, that's a win. The
nature of these operations, they don't fight conventional battles. They mutate. These terrorist groups, they don't fight conventional battles. So if he assesses it on that or from that perspective, then it's a flawed assessment. Any security expert who knows his onions will tell you it's not fought that way. So this group mutated into different forms. You had a merger with ISWAP. You had ISIS in West Africa taking place.
The only reason why they would mutate is because they were countered in some area. And so they were trying to fight back.
I mean, if you go to War College, these are pedestrian things. That
now, ladies and gentlemen, the Human Rights Writer Association, Huriwa, has said that, well, they've described this situation as despicable, outrageous, and termed the statement by the Kaduna State Governor alleging that 66 Fulanis were slaughtered as being false. Now, the body has said that they've decided to petition to the international community, including the International Criminal Court in The Hague, Netherlands, to inform these institutions and world leaders that at the sight of the governor, he has to be arrested. What do you make of their stance?
I don't think it's out of place. Let me give an example. If you look at what happened in Rwanda during the genocide in 1994, certain actors, certain people in position made statements that caused the genocide to take place. If you look at what happened in South Africa 2016, 2017, during the xenophobic attacks as well, too, a mayor made certain statements that incited people to do certain things. And now, if you situate it locally, it's not out of place to say that.
Well, their excuse is this. They say he must be arrested and prosecuted for crimes against humanity for all of the atrocious killings of Christians by armed Fulani terrorists belonging to Miyetti Allah Cattle Owners Association, who also share the same ethno-religious affinities with the governor.
I doubt that they will be able, the ICC would step in such a manner at this point, especially regarding our nation's sovereignty and the fact that the governor has immunity for the duration of his tenure. If he does leave office in this cycle, or when he does leave office eventually, it is possible he might be investigated, especially because the last statement he made that got him in trouble as well about the body bags has also drawn people from different parts of Nigeria, Ohanaeze Ndigbo, Afenifere, even other groups have petitioned the ICC as well. And so I believe he's now a person of interest. So knowing this, I believe and I hope for his sake that he's more careful with the things that he says and he avoids making these statements. He could have not made that statement and everything would have been fine.
Also, the people, he did make a statement about the Southern Kaduna people because of these ethnic violences and the clashes that have been happening over the years, they have urged that he picked a running mate that was Christian. But he made a statement that even if he ran with the Pope, he would not satisfy the people of Southern Kaduna, and he's not expecting any votes from Southern Kaduna. In what ways, as we wind this conversation down, can this governor, because, I mean, he's running for a second term, unify the people of Kaduna, even though he says it's a tumultuous, you know, it's a Herculean task to deal with that issue right now in the space of the 4 years that he has. But what would you rather he does, you know, going forward to unify the people and reduce all of this, especially from the things he says?
They say you don't teach a man to use his left hand in old age. I don't think it's
No, I don't think he even wants to. All that is just...
It's grandstanding.
Yeah, see, I don't think he wants to do any form of uniting of the people of the...
but he's the governor of a state, not a governor of a certain
when somebody
section.
has told you clearly that, look, I'm not expecting these people to vote for me, do you really think he cares he cares about them. He really does.
If you remember again, one of the reasons why this sentiment continues to exist is that it's on record in times past, even from a tweet, where he made an allusion to the fact that the blood of any Fulani slain in the course of this was a debt that would be paid no matter how long it took. In other words, alluding to the fact that there will be reprisals of any Fulani killing this thing. So you have people now who are now looking at this man and saying, we know you, you've always spoken like this. It's not a new thing to us. In fact, I saw some statements online between yesterday and today of a statement allegedly attributed to him saying that Yorubas acted the way they did at the Abeokuta rally where the president was and his entourage were stoned because that's how they are. That's how, as a people, they are.
So if we understand this is an individual that has a tongue that lashes out these sort of words,
then he should not be awarded with a second term. He should not be awarded with a second term in office.
My fear is that I hope there will not be a reprisal attack because of his.
So now we are counting down to Saturday.
I have faith in the.
Do you think we would have a secure Kaduna State as the elections are going to hold? Because if some have said, well, those killings were supposed to ensure that we have a postponement, do you think now that INEC is saying, well, we would ensure we have an election on Saturday, do you think first and foremost security would be ensured? And what sort of deployment as well do you expect to be done in that area since we've identified it as a hotspot?
The GOC of One Div in that region recently, I mean, he just resumed not a few weeks ago, very recently, and he has gone already on to make an assessment of the places where these killings were alleged to have taken place. And I know that he's a man who's given to community relations very well. One of the things that the governor did was that he requested that the people from Southern Kaduna, he requested that our traditional rulers produce the people who killed these people. And it doesn't happen like that. He can't just pull people from the air and say, these are the guys who killed the people when they're not even sure there were killings that took place. However, this GOC is on a peacemaking mission. He's going around. Who's a man who's well-versed in
We have
civil
4 days
relations.
to the elections now. Do you think necessarily we would see Kaduna State safe enough to conduct the elections?
These very incredible elections.
I'm optimistic that it's possible.
I believe so.
It's possible, but again, the state actors and non-state actors have to sheathe their swords. The governor, I mean, we should just. Is the crisis waiting to happen? It seems every statement he makes is further for Olivia Pope.
If we
get him to zip his mouth, there'll probably be nothing to worry about.
For me, really, how do you think we would just be able to ensure? Because at the end of the day, people would still expect that if things tilt either ways, the pendulum.
I would advise that there should be heavy security presence in Kaduna, Southern Kaduna, from doing the polls. I really would recommend that, because the truth of the matter is that even if some people have decided, look, we won't do anything about it, you have other people who are hotheads.
Should there be punitive measures also added to this heavy security? Because I heard the president say something today during their APC meeting about, people being shot at, and
trying to start ballot boxes.
If there are people who are trying to cause confusion on election days at certain places, should there be punitive measures? Maybe that would serve as a deterrent.
There are measures already.
There are punitive measures. People who are caught stealing ballot boxes are already.
How binding are these measures?
Well, there are measures. I know that right now, if ballot boxes are stolen, all the votes in that particular
away from the ballot boxes. I'm talking about these guys.
Any kind of violence. Right now, the polls in that particular unit is null and void. So I think that's something that's why, if you notice, in Osun and Ekiti, violence wasn't too much of a problem because they know that they will lose all the votes. So it's better for them to, which is why we're back to vote buying, as against.
But with all of these killings now, do you think that to redirect the steps and ensure that everybody comes out en masse, you would be expecting a statement from the state governor to assure the state residents that don't worry, everything will be fine?
Governor are you talking about?
Kaduna State's governor.
Yeah, you belong your own.
Even if he said it, there's a wide trust deficit that exists right now.
Yeah.
There's not even his genuine gestures of reconciliation, if there were any, would be viewed with the grandest measure of suspicion. So, I mean, he's dug himself into this hole. It's going to be very hard to dig himself out of it.
Well, we're still looking at free, fair, credible elections, and security still remains a definitive element when we are talking about all of these. And and more. Thank you very much, Michael Famarotti. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. He's a security.
Peter Igbedion.
Peter Igbedion. Sorry, I had to do that. I beg your pardon.
You're Steve Harvey.
Thank you very much. Fumi Ayomla, just a
thank you.
YPP aspirant for House of Reps, Surulere constituency. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll take a short break, and when we return, it'll be time for the news, and right after that, Nigeria Decides continues. Stay tuned.
First point of accountability is asking questions.
Hello and welcome to Plus Sports and Plus TV Africa. I am Udoka Njoko.
Hi everyone, welcome to Plus Training.
You cannot continue to recycle poverty while you're spending a lot of money on unproductive ventures.
The government has to feel the impact.
Honorable Commissioner, sir, welcome to the show.
That is how we get looped into a cycle of insanity, repeating the same thing and expecting a different result. That cycle of failure is unsustainable and it has to end now.
Perfection Train is back.
They take us to the bush and start asking us to call our people to send money.
What can be done as an intervention for them right now to stop abuse of all children?
Goal 10 of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals speaks largely about eliminating inequality amongst countries and peoples. The United Nations clearly recognizes that businesses can also exacerbate inequality by being complicit in perpetrating biases and discrimination. The question, however, is, how exactly does this resonate with Nigeria? Lagos is the most populous city in Nigeria and has millions of persons. Among these are little persons also, often found in Osborn in Ikoyi. They are trying to make a living as they grapple with inequality and discrimination because of their physical appearances. Wisdom Abba and his wife Joanne are one of the little persons who moved from other parts of the country into Lagos to make a living by getting employed despite their physical inadequacies. They say that in Lagos, they had hoped to win the battle against discrimination, but this fight, however, seems to be a lost one as they are constantly marginalized by some employers while hunting for jobs.
Sometimes, somebody will promise me at where I'm selling market, because we drive car, we say we find work for me. I will pull up on that person. At last, the person will not find a job. The person promise me, many of them.
When I want to look for a job, they say they can't give me a job, that I'm too short, then I should go.
This couple is not the only little person seeking an end to discrimination in job hunting. Nkubi and Shapali are celebrity broadcasters. They too say that they have had a painful taste of societal rejection.
I got called up for an interview. One of the management now walked up to me and told me that, look, I am sincerely very sorry. You are not the kind of person we are looking for.
My sister, you know, growing up, she'll be like, Daddy, where do you get this thing from?
Though Shapali comes across as a very confident woman, she says growing up was torturous.
I'm talking to you, I don't know my mom until now. She ran away because I am a dog.
She adds that her self-esteem was dealt a devastating blow for even thinking of marrying a tall man and begetting tall offspring as her mother-in-law rejected her.
I had a relationship that the guy, you know, took me home to the mom. And I was there in their living room, seated, and the guy went to call the mom. The mom came and was like, where? Sorry, oh my dear, sorry. Where is the wife? My son said he brought. And I was like, it's me. And like, stop joking now. How will it be you? My son came up to come that he brought somebody. You know, I was not accepted.
Bash and Iyatokpe are 9 to 5 persons. They reveal that they have also been treated with inequality countless times.
My own junior brother, the one that follows me, he also thought I'm kind of like a junior to him. We usually fight every day.
I go one place. I say, then they find person will go sweep here. They say not true. I say I won't do it. They say, you do it. Which hand do you want to take sweep here?
With only 12 years left to expunge inequality by 2030, only little is known if Nigeria will truly wipe out this menace. But Wisdom and his wife Joanne, Nkubi, Shapali, Bash and Iyatokpe continue to hope that someday they will be treated like every other human being. I am Mary Chinda for Plus TV Africa.
Good evening and many thanks for joining us on our news update at this hour. I'm David Alabian. Here are the stories making headlines right here on Plus TV Africa. Now we begin with news just reaching us that say that the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has okayed the resumption of political campaigns across the country. This was contained in a statement by INEC's National Commissioner and Chairman of the Commission's Information and Voter Education Committee, Festus Okoye. We'll definitely bring you out the details as they unfold later. And moving on to other reports, President Muhammadu Buhari has suggested that the Independent National Electoral Commission would be made to explain the real reasons behind its incompetence after all the scheduled elections, which must have been concluded. Speaking at the National Caucus meeting of the All Progressives Congress held at the party's national headquarters in Abuja on Monday, the president insisted that the electoral body had no reason to postpone the elections considering the kind of support it had received from the government.
That INEC leadership knew that they were going to postpone the election. They shared this information with the People's Democratic Party and advised them not to waste their resources, while pretending to us that they are on top of the situation. Mr. President, it will be such a tragedy if at a ruling party we cannot complain of being rigged out, and yet all the early warning indicators are there.
Chairman has said it all. They didn't have to wait for only 6 hours to cast in the votes to tell us that it was impossible. Definitely, the reasons why such incompetence manifests itself has to be explained to the nation. I really give the military and the police the ruthless. We are not going to be blamed that we want to rig the election. I want Nigerians to be respected.
On the other hand, the national leadership of the People's Democratic Party has summoned an emergency National Executive Committee meeting of the party. The meeting, which holds in Abuja on Tuesday, is expected to be presided over by the national chairman of the PDP, Uche Secondus. National Publicity Secretary of the party, Kola Ologbondiyan, confirmed the decision to hold a meeting. In an interview with our correspondent, it was guided that the meeting will discuss issues related to the postponement of last Saturday's presidential and National Assembly elections. It is also expected to analyze the speech of President Muhammadu Buhari at the All Progressives Congress National Caucus meeting in Abuja today. Apart from the presidential candidate of the PDP, Atiku Abubakar, governors elected on the platform of the party, its national officers, principal officers of the National Assembly who are members of the former ruling party are among those expected to be at the meeting. Now, the Buhari Support Organization has rejected the Independent National Electoral Commission's ban on campaigns by political parties. The national chairman of the BSO, Muhammad Abubakar, spoke to newsmen in Abuja, saying INEC has no right to stop campaigns of political parties less than as mandated by the provisions of the Electoral Act. Dr. Muhammad urged support groups of the APC to dismiss the directive from INEC, saying the Electoral Act gives candidates up to 24 hours to round up their campaigns before voting commences.
APC is not accepting that there is no campaign. The rule says you stop campaign 24 hours before the election, and 24 hours is Thursday midnight. That is the day, and APC will abide by that because that is the rule, that is the constitutional provision. So INEC cannot unilaterally change that and deny people their right to campaign. So based on this, I'm calling all the members of BSO, wherever they are, all members of other support groups, Buhari support groups, to continue to mobilize people till the stated time and day. In other words, to campaign. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not against the law. I think various people, parties, and even legal professionals have stated that the INEC has no right to deny people that opportunity to campaign again, to call on people.
And ahead of the rescheduled presidential and National Assembly elections coming up on Saturday, a chieftain of the ruling All Progressives Congress in Bauchi State, Lura Musalimi, on Sunday renounces membership of the party. Addressing newsmen, the politician, who is the deputy director of the campaign of the APC House of Representatives candidate from Das, Tafawa Balewa and Bogoro Federal Constituency of Bauchi State, Dalhatu Abubakar Kantana, said he was no longer interested in the party or in the campaign team for the upcoming polls. Muslim, however, stated that he was yet to decide his next political party, saying he would consult his supporters before taking further action. The APC candidate is contesting against the Speaker, House of Representatives, Yakubu Dogara, who is the flag bearer of the People's Democratic Party for Das, Bogoro and Tafawa Federal Constituency of Bauchi. The Independent National Electoral Commission has reconfigured some card readers in the Adamawa State following the retrieval of sensitive materials for the general elections on Saturday. The sensitive materials had been distributed ahead of the elections, which were initially scheduled to hold on February 16, last Saturday. They have, however, now been deposited at the Central Bank of Nigeria following the postponement of the elections. Also in Ekiti State, INEC officials have taken stakeholders to the Central Bank of Nigeria to confirm the state of sensitive materials returned. The People's Democratic Party in the state had raised an alarm that the materials may have been tampered with to favor the All Progressives Congress because, according to them, the sensitive materials were returned late. Consequently, INEC political parties, head of security agencies, as well as journalists, went to the CBN to verify. The electoral umpire, however, assured people of the state that it remains committed to ensuring a credible exercise this week. In other reports, the Independent National Electoral Commission in Kebbi State has urged politicians to be wary of social media posts announcing results after voting prior to the official declaration of results by the Commission. The resident electoral commissioner in the state, Ahmad Mahmood, gave the advice during an interactive session with stakeholders in Birin Kebbi on Monday. Ahmad Muhammad urged Nigerians to be wary of social media posted results before INEC's official declaration. Talking legal matters now, the Federal High Court in Abuja has stopped the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission from declaring wanted a former chairman of the Presidential Task Force on Pension Reforms, Abdul Rashid Maina, who was suspected of complicity in diversion of pension funds. The EFCC had declared him wanted after news broke in 2017 that Maina, who had been dismissed from the Federal Civil Service in 2013 on the basis of the corruption charges leveled against him, had been reinstated. But in a judgment delivered on January 31 this year, Justice Folashade Giwa Ogumajo held that the EFCC could not declare Maina wanted without first obtaining a court order. Delivering judgment in the suit filed by Mainau on September 5, 2018, Justice Giwa Ogunbanja ruled that the EFCC could not exercise its powers under the sections 1, subsection 2, section 6, 7, and 13 of the EFCC Act without recourse to the court. In other legal matters, the High Court of the Federal Capital Territory sitting in Bwari, Abuja, has insisted that its judgment and orders affirming the legitimacy of the Daniel Nwafor-led executive of the All Progressives Congress in Imo State remain in force. Justice Uthman Musa made the clarification on Monday at a resumed hearing in post-judgment proceedings initiated by the National Office of the APC, its national chairman Adams Oshiomhole and Mr. Nwafor. In a judgment delivered on August 14 last year, the court had upheld the legitimacy of the Nwafor-led executive of the APC in Imo and forbade the dissolution of the committee. After the judgment, Nwafor filed an application seeking Oshiomhole's committal to prison on the grounds that he allegedly moved to dissolve the committee in violation of the August 2018 judgment. Mr. Oshiomhole and the APC equally filed an application challenging the validity of the judgment, which they argued was delivered without jurisdiction. They also filed a counter-affidavit to the application by Nwafor. At the hearing, Justice Uthman elected to first hear the applications by the APC and its chairman on the issue of jurisdiction before hearing Mr. Nwafor's application for committal. The judge, however, insisted that the court's judgment of August 14 last year and the consequent orders made remain in force until question about the validity of the judgment and orders was resolved. He adjourned till March 20 this year for the hearing of the application by the APC and Oshiomhole, as well as the application for his committal. And bringing you other reports from the rest of Africa, a Zimbabwe court has remanded in custody the son of a former president following his arrest in a crackdown on a $2 billion government debt scandal. Namdi Gubuza, the oldest of Amando Gubuza's 4 children, was picked up from his home in the capital Maputo at the weekend. He was arrested in connection with the government borrowing, which plunged the country into its worst ever financial crisis. Authorities last week arrested 7 other suspects, including businessmen and intelligence officials, in connection with the debt scandal. The scandal came in light in 2016, a year after ex-leader Gubuza left office following 10 years in power. It is alleged that while he was still in office, the government in Maputo took out loans amounting to $2 billion to buy a tuna fishing fleet and civilian ships, but hid the transaction from Parliament and international donors. And the foreign scene, a Spanish warship tried to order commercial shipping to leave anchorages in British waters near Gibraltar, but was challenged by the British Navy and sailed away. The Spanish ship tried to order ships to leave their anchorages on the eastern side of the rock, but the ship stayed in position. After being challenged by the British Navy, the Spanish warship then sailed slowly along the coast with its weapons uncovered and manned. Spanish authorities did not immediately comment on the issue. Tensions over territorial waters around the peninsula in southern Spain often erupt between Spanish and British vessels. Gibraltar, overlooking the strait between the Atlantic Ocean and Mediterranean Sea, has been ruled by Britain since 1713. Its status and the status of its 30,000 residents have been gaining attention as Britain's exit from the European Union approaches on March 29, raising questions about free movement across its land and sea borders with Spain. Spain had already secured a right to veto over whether future Brexit arrangements can apply to Gibraltar. Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez held up an agreement on Britain's withdrawal treaty in November last year over the issue and said Spain would seek joint sovereignty after Britain leaves the EU. And in a statement by the International Monetary Fund, Uganda is expected to record growth of 6.3% in the 2018-2019 fiscal year. The growth can be attributed to large activities recorded in the manufacturing, construction and services industry. Also, the statement noted that Kampala's inflation is expected to stabilize at around 5% over the next 12 months. However, the country is still bedeviled with ballooning public debt, with Uganda's finance ministry saying that the country's debt stands at 41% of its gross domestic product. In entertainment news, American rapper T.I.'s reality show Family Hustle has been put on hold after the rapper's sister Precious Harris was involved in a bad car crash in Atlanta. According to sources close to the rapper, the production was halted on Wednesday the 13th of this month. It is still unclear what led to the accident, but reports say Precious hit a pole which triggered an asthma attack. 66-year-old Precious makes regular appearances on the show, and rapper T.I. and his wife Tiny are close to Precious and are currently devastated and consider it a good idea not to move on with the show until Precious pulls through. And in the world of sport, MLS side Orlando City have signed Sporting Lisbon winger Luis Nani on a free transfer. The 32-year-old joins Orlando City on a 3-year deal. One of its designated players. The Portuguese winger scored 9 goals and had 7 assists in 28 matches for Sporting Lisbon this season before making the move to the MLS. Nani also played for Valencia, Lazio and Manchester United, winning the UEFA Champions League and Premier League title 4 times. And that's it on our news update this hour. For more news update and broadcast, please follow us at Plus TV Africa on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. And please do remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Plus TV Africa. It's now time to cross over back to our election studio where Nigeria decides.
I am gap-toothed black girl, back corner of class, scribbling left-handed poetry on blank paper. Save the school's curriculum for later. I am overflowing tales by moonlight, that informal education. Trickling off the tip of my grandmother's tongue, you will find my mother's tongue here. A fast and fluent Yoruba, crisscrossing English, hidden messages in prose and proverbs call it Yorubanglish. And I am the miracle of melody, nestled deep in the groove of a rich high life rhythm, a child of the marriage of hip hop and Afro beats, and you can hear our voices pulsing beneath the skin of a talking drum, commanding hips to move without caution. And I am sky high, gele, bold and beautiful. We redefine fashion, wear our stories around our necks and from our ears so we never forget the voices of our ancestors. This heritage, this heartbeat, this is who I am. Heritage Bank, your timeless wealth partner.
This TV station, Plus TV Africa, is designed to help to create a paradigm shift. The more we tell our stories, the more we learn from whatever our past mistakes have been.
We can be much more than we are. We should be doing a lot in refineries.
We are definitely investing in our staff. We're training, we're developing, we're creating the kind of workforce that will be the envy of the international broadcast. The quality of the reportage, the quality of our presentation, the quality of our production will be obvious. We're saying that we want to reach Africans wherever they are and get the message across to them. That's what Plus TV Africa is all about.
What we do not understand, we will stigmatize.
What you can see is the remaining of the tanker that exploded.
The suspect equally confessed
collect them.
If you no talk, then go beat you.
Now 2,500 when they pay.
It for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Vicky November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
Brazilian who, with the longer blades that Austria wasn't too impressed with, the 200 metres, but we must stress, absolutely legal.
Sounds of the surf.
Yeah. Now that he's a hater, I don't want no bad energy. Man get used by a radar, but you can't see my enemy.
And this time they are away, and Peacock goes away strongly.
She wants a man from London, she wants a fellow with felonies. That's not you, my team. There's no I in it, I bring it on my team. Just when they saw my team, even the bouncers bounce when they saw my team. Who do you wanna never know? Don't be a sheep when you can be the goal. Great, it's about time and you never know. Don't show up to my show, you got no energy.
We're back. It's still Nigeria Decides, and we're reaching you live from our studios right here in Lagos. Reports reaching us right now is telling us that INEC has lifted the ban on parties' campaign. Now, of course, we know that after the announcement of the postponement of the elections, political parties were asking that INEC allow them to go back to their constituencies, to their base to begin campaigns, because there's nothing really left to do while they wait for Saturday. But then it seems like that prayer has been answered.
Now we still have Peter Igbedion, security consultant, still staying with us. We also have Fumi Ayoladosumu, the YPP aspirant House of Representatives through their constituency. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I find this pretty much interesting, this news reaching us that INEC has lifted a ban. Some would say that if INEC keeps on churning out conflicting reports, first you say there is a ban that has not been shifted, and now a few hours later you tell us the ban has been lifted and political parties can continue campaigning. What do you make of their stance, especially when their integrity still stands in question?
I actually think that their hand was forced. INEC was trying to, I think what they were trying to do was to ensure that nothing changed until Friday, until Saturday when we do the votes. But when you have the two big parties who have decided that they'll go ahead with the campaign either way, it was just best to you know, to fall in line. Because there's no point. I mean, will you start penalizing people for going ahead with the campaign, considering the fact that the Constitution says that campaign goes on until 24 hours before the election, which will now be Thursday night. So they really don't have a leg to stand on, which is why...
The fact that the elections go on the way they...
Some political parties were calling for compensation, that they had already fielded some of their officers across the states of the Federation and the FCT as well. So where are they supposed to, if you are now pushing for more campaigns, that means money. So why then did you cry foul initially? That's another question some groups are asking. Because now everybody is saying, yay, we have more chance to win votes. Yeah. But you were still crying nay a few days ago.
I mean, prior to the elections, and I'll say this and let you say you have your turn. Prior to the supposed date for the elections last Saturday, I doubt that there were still swing voters or undecided voters. Everybody had practically made up their mind. What you're going to do now is will amount to just pouring water in the ocean. I'm not sure I agree with you. I can tell you that some positive news has come out just because of the postponement. YPP has gotten some, you know, some protest votes. Yeah, protest votes. So really, that's, I mean, and let me tell you the truth about the parties complaining about having spent money. On Friday night, I was at our party secretariat after 12, mobilizing polling agents. You pay for their transport, you do all that. And then on Saturday, that means that back Friday night, I'm going to spend that same money. We're going to have to spend the same money again, remobilizing the same people. So the truth of matters is that there's a lot of money that had been spent. So there's no reason for them to
But here you are excited about the news of having an opportunity to campaign. So the question we're still asking is, where's the money?
Beyond the opportunity, where's the money?
No, you can do campaign. You see, the problem I have with Nigeria is that everybody thinks that campaigning has to do with it. You must spend money for you to campaign.
But parties were asking for money.
Yes, the truth of the matter is that you will spend money, but this last minute campaign is not about. That's why you know, that is one of the problems I kept having. You want to talk to somebody, they say, give me money. But I think things are changing now, right?
You're still
I still had a meeting. I had a meeting with a few people yesterday.
Jingles will be played again. Is that not going to be paid for?
See, it doesn't have to be. This campaigning now, it doesn't have to be jingles, it doesn't have to be TV, it doesn't have to be adverts, it doesn't have to be all that. It could be simple one-on-one, canvassing, small groups, you know, small groups who either had not made up their minds really. Gives you another chance to get into them and say, you guys, look now, see what's happening now, don't you think that you should? And that's what I'm saying. So it doesn't have to be large campaigns, spend so much money. It could be just be inroads into they could be smaller campaigns.
But that's your thinking. Yes. That's your thinking. The other parties probably won't be thinking this way, and some of them have a huge war chest of money to spend. But now that you've opened those gates, for everybody to come back out in the system, it's going to, left to me, it's going to cause more conflict. What you have people who are bent on tearing each other apart online. And now, if you see the comments, they are more vile now.
Another group of...
Let's look at the issue of voters getting confused as to party logos. That's a big issue. And if you're telling me that, oh, you don't need money to do these campaigns, how do people know your logos? How can they tell that this is your party?
Continue with that education.
If you do not continuously use the media, you know, especially TV, and sometimes even radio, by the things you say, people can tell which is your party. Because it's going to be a very difficult task for those people who are going to vote for you, especially those who are yet to really know you as much. Of course, the big parties, the ones that have the cock and the umbrella and the broom, people know them. What about you guys? You're the newcomers.
The one thing that I found out is that if somebody has decided to vote for a party, more often than not, they go out of their way to find out the logo. I remember some women I sat with, they were saying, look, we're going to vote for Obi. And then, you know, I waited for them to finish talking. I said, okay, so what's the name of our party? And other than like, nobody knew the party. They just knew it was Obi. And I said to them, look, you guys, her picture is not going to be on the ballot paper. So go and find out which party she is at. That's the only way you can go for her. What I found out that if you're going to vote for somebody, first thing you will find out is what party. Now, the people who have problems with identifying party are the grassroots, the illiterates, you know, and I'm not sure that this couple of days, that kind of campaign is what is going to, you know, I'm not sure that the campaigning now will get down to that level anymore because you don't have that. kind of time.
But quickly
so you're not going
now,
to reach out to the grassroots?
I would also like to have your reaction. Yes, removing the ban which prohibits political parties to campaign has been lifted and does not necessarily affect INEC's coordination of activities. But some school of thought would also say, well, if you can give room for this campaign, why not also give room as well for the collection of PVCs? Just over the weekend, last 2 weeks, there was the room given where people could actually collect the PVCs. Some within that space of time weren't able to get there, as we know those who are just nonchalant about getting their PVCs. But don't you think if INEC is willing to shift grounds for campaigns, don't you think it should also be fair enough to open the grounds for collection of PVCs?
If on that basis, it would have made sense for campaigns to continue. If people that didn't have PVCs before were allowed to collect the PVCs, then there would be reason for campaigns to continue. Again, this leads me to something else. I remember that there's supposed to be a cap on how much each party can spend for campaigning. I don't know that INEC is following through on that. And especially in this window of a few days, I don't know how INEC will ensure...
Has any party reached that limit where they've stated
we don't know that. I'm not sure that
but the truth is, parties, I mean, I know this, I always make reference to this. In 2014, SERAP officially asked for political parties to make known their party finances. I mean, we're in 2019. They have not till now. SERAP has even taken these political parties to court. So, I mean, if the finances of these parties are not made public, how can you even say you can trail them? I mean, I don't even know if INEC has the manpower to do that.
Exactly the problem.
So bringing it to manpower now, if you're going to give people their PVCs now, already INEC has a logistical nightmare on its hands. Exactly. How are they going to? Beg your pardon?
So they can't do PVC.
They can't do PVC. So with that as well, they're constrained. I feel really sorry for them because a lot of them are ad hoc staff. Some of them have no experience prior to now. So you're up against a system that's failing, and there's little that they can do. I commiserate with every Nigerian who's been disenfranchised right now by INEC. It's a price we have to pay for this democracy.
You initially said that, well, when the ban was put in place, we actually had a little bit of sanity when we are looking at criticisms and sharp responses and comments from all political parties. Now we are having a resurrection of that as well. Again, how do you think this would also shake up the policy as we are counting down to Saturday?
See, the truth of the matter is that even if they didn't lift the ban, on campaigning.
No, but there was a little bit of sanity.
Sanity. There was people were more restrained.
APC and PDP, they came out from day one to say, look, we're not going to adhere to this.
Because you know, at the end of the day, all of the statements that come from these political parties are what usually fuels conversation.
Exactly.
If they've been told no campaign, you saw that they all kept their cool. And did not even usher a word.
When you use the word no campaign, do you know that on election day, there are people called canvassers?
Yes.
You know, there are people called canvassers. They go into the houses and tell people, yeah, come out and vote for this party. Come out. Do you understand? So when you say no campaign, you have to understand the campaigns are all, they're different tiers and different levels, and you know it's not the big.
So does it mean that those canvassers are breaching the no campaign rule?
Well,
because you just told me that there are different tiers of campaigning. So if it's a zero campaign policy on election day, then canvassers should be arrested.
But canvassers are allowed.
The system is
the law contradicts itself.
Absolutely, it does everywhere.
They have canvassers going into houses, telling people, yeah, come out and vote, come, let's go vote, come, let's go. And you know the person who's your canvasser, I mean, I know of a party that they're having 3 canvassers in every polling unit. So you know that when they say put a ban on campaigning, I'm sure that it's because they're different, like I said, there are different levels of campaign.
Yes,
I mean, when I'm talking to somebody next door, I can say, look, my neighbor, have you decided to vote for me? Am I campaigning?
You are campaigning.
Yes, but then the truth of the matter is that who's going to know?
I see.
Politicians. You know, on a lighter note, we got the news of the lift on the ban, and you're here right in time for that. So I think fortuitously, I mean, you're doing that already. You're
not allowed to campaign here.
Okay, now you said, well, within the space of time, you can still convince some individuals that have not really made up their mind, and Peter thinks otherwise, that you cannot make as much of an impact. But I would like us to elaborate your stance now. How much of an impact do you think 4 days to Saturday would? No, 3 days, because campaigns would have ended by Friday. So 3 days to go. How much of an impact do you think this would punch through the brains of the electorate, and how much of a level of receptiveness do you expect from the voters? Because trust me, some individuals have said, well, we are not going to necessarily participate in the votes because of all of the things that happened, and others have a stronger will to say, well, we are going for this. So how do you think the pendulum would swing, especially when you're analyzing all of this?
Let me start by saying that, look, what happened, the postponing of the elections actually disenfranchised a number of people.
True.
And they're so upset. So they're looking for somebody. People who either told we're not going to vote at all have decided, you know what, we're going to vote this thing. I mean, people who had said, well, I'm not going to go, they said, look, how can this be happening in my country? And so now you have a lot of people who want to come out and vote who didn't plan to. You have people who are disenfranchised with their parties because of what has happened, and they're looking for
people who can't travel back to their constituencies anymore.
Yes, so you have a lot of people who are disenfranchised, and so they're willing to take a chance. And somebody, I got a call on Saturday night. This group of people who we had been talking to, who were already going for one particular party, they said, look, you know what, come back, let's discuss again.
There are also people who are apathetic right now, who apathy has set in because the whole emotional investment into these elections that they didn't hold. Some people are like, you know what, the process is not even worth it. Let me just forget about it. So you have those number of people. So I do concede that in some measure, the lifting of the ban on campaigning can help to encourage voter participation as opposed to apathy, but again, in the larger scheme of things, is going to be just dropping it.
We all listened to the INEC chairman when he was delivering his speech on just a few days ago, a few hours ago, and that was yesterday. Why do I say a few days ago? A few hours ago, he reeled out some achievements that are supposed to have been gotten today. They are expected to have achieved X, Y, Z. Tomorrow they're expected to achieve all of those. Now, how do you think the distribution and a whole lot more would also play out? Because if it is saying that, well, we're lifting this ban, do you think that the other achievements as well that INEC might have set out for itself, it should be able to achieve? Because it initially came out with a strong stance that their word is their word and they are not lifting any ban or they are not making any change in plan. So now that they've released that, do you think they would be able to achieve all of the things set out by Friday? Distribution and mobilization of, or do you think this ban
doesn't affect,
lifting?
Not administrative.
No, my question is this: do you necessarily think that this is just to shift attention as a distraction?
No, I think it's because the parties had decided they were going to go ahead anyway. PDP and APC came up this morning saying that, look, this is what the law says, and we're going to stick by the law. The law says we can continue campaigning. I mean, the best thing INEC could possibly have done is just to lift that ban. Because if they were taking the court on this issue, they most likely would lose. So this is not about whether they were ready or they're not ready. The lifting of the campaign does not affect them in any way. I mean, it has nothing to do with the administrative work that they're doing. It really doesn't affect INEC.
But it does in a way, because if I remember correctly, INEC is supposed to send a representative to the campaign activities of each party. So because INEC is overstretched now, I also believe that that's one of the reasons why they were requesting for. Correct me, you're the one who's active in this.
No, let me put it this way: if the party was having a rally, yes, a big major rally, yes.
But that's what the campaign is.
INEC is supposed to. But what is happening right now, this last couple of days, is not about the big rally. Everybody has done their last campaign.
If it's a rally, INEC sent someone.
But if it's put it this way: what INEC said to us was, if you're having a rally, right, you will get a police report. You get police approval, and then bring us the police approval, and then we will have people come over to your rally. So when I was talking to them, I said, "What do you mean? So she said, why do you want people at the rally? They said they want to be sure they don't check how much we're spending and stuff like that. I said, so where were you 2 weeks ago when
the other party was giving people to 2,000 and co? Where were you? She said they didn't invite them to the rally. I said, so you're waiting, and that's what happened. They always wait to be invited. So it really the policy of having people at rallies doesn't really work. Yeah.
I'd like us to quickly just shift our focus now to the APC caucus meeting, and PDP is also expected to hold its own meeting as well. Now, it came out with a couple of outcomes, and the president has said, well, security agencies on election day are supposed to deal with any individual who is seen snatching ballots or attempting to snatch ballots or disrupt the whole election process. What do you make of that stance?
You're a security expert.
Is that a reinforcement? Because the word said deal ruthlessly with thugs.
I also saw a statement a few minutes ago where the wording of what we're saying now is different, where the presidency is saying they didn't say that in those terms. So again, I would.
But there's a video evidence.
There's video evidence, but and this is the thing. Sometimes the damage control that they do, some of these things are said in the heat of every means possible. Use maximum force, because that's what it implies in a way, that use maximum force if necessary to apprehend people who are trying to interfere with the process on election day. You're going to have trigger-happy cops in the minds of people, so people don't want to go out to vote. So this is not, it wasn't a smart move on his part.
So we might have a case of bullets flying, and then of course people will be scared.
We're hoping that doesn't happen, but again, these things are open to ambiguities, and you shouldn't have someone at his level. He's a major, I mean, he's a general. I mean, and then he should bring that experience.
He was a general.
I mean, he's still addressed as general.
He's a retired general.
Yes, he's still addressed as general. So
no,
I mean, the training didn't leave him.
Okay,
retired general. But
so, but my question is, in a case, the people who are making a case for what the president said, we cannot keep having these people who are in, the habit of snatching ballot boxes. We want to go beyond that, and we want to put an end to it. And Mr. President is saying, by any means possible, within the ambit of the law. It shouldn't be coming from the president. It could also, because of the ambiguity, it could also mean you have been given the responsibility to make sure that whoever is engaged in this act of ballot box snatching, apprehend them. If they are armed, well, make sure that you disarm them. But within the ambit of the law, they're saying this is right, because it is also a way to check.
But the statement is coming on the heels of an APC National Caucus meeting. It's not coming from the confines
But it was spoken by a president who is a sitting president. It wasn't spoken by the campaign or the party leader.
Let me come in here.
Okay.
Yeah, yesterday I was at a meeting with a group of people, and they were like, look, what are you doing about securing your votes? And they were like, look, last election, they had voted for a particular party en masse and gone totten men
showed up.
Mercenaries showed up and started shooting. They lost a couple of people, and they snatched the ballot boxes. So they were like, look, what are you doing? Are you going to have security men guarding your boxes, guarding your votes? Or are we just going to come out and there's nobody protecting us? And it was a real fear. I found out that everywhere you go, people, that's the first thing they ask you, how are you securing your votes? People are really scared of the fact that we're going to have violence. We have parties who are training men as we speak to go and harass people, that kind of thing. So when the president says, do something to ensure that to secure your ballot, I don't think he has I don't think, maybe
the director was to the security agency.
Yeah, maybe the way he said it was a bit, but the implication behind it is very true. I've been telling people, I said, look, all of you fight for this particular election.
But I just think what's most responsible is that when we're looking at all of these political actors, the manner, the kind of words you use to deliver, no matter the intent, it has to be carefully constructed.
Exactly.
You can't just say something come out and then you later try to retract control. But they now also say that after the elections, they would have to investigate, or they would investigate into this supposed incompetence of INEC for having postponed the election. Now, another question will be raised. So what if they don't come into power?
What if they don't win?
They don't win this election. How then does that investigation
take place?
INEC should audit itself, and that's why there's a word independence in their makeup, the Independent National Electoral Commission. If they should audit themselves, I mean, even for basic project management, you learn that after everything you should do lessons learned. I'm hoping that they can put that in place. You should have firms like KPMG. I'm sorry, I'm calling names. I shouldn't be advertising for them, but you should have firms that are able to audit them and help them improve their processes, because it's not just about one election, it's about subsequent elections. For instance, there are some states in Nigeria whose governorship elections will not hold in this cycle, they will hold in 2020 and maybe 2021.
Another school would also question that how does an entity or a body do a self-audit when it says, well, we've provided beds and provided mats and fuel and etc., and then we saw pictures go viral of NYSC core members who have decided to serve as ad hoc staff for INEC, and they weren't properly catered for, yet that wasn't addressed intently.
Yet. I think, from what I've heard, the INEC chairman is a man of good character, and I think it would have pained him to see our youth exposed.
No, I'm just asking for the capacity of self-audit.
Yeah. I understand that the NYSC in Lagos have said they're not working next weekend. Because
for this election?
Yes,
officially,
yes.
Is there an official?
Because I think, well, yes, this is because I heard they're going to protest on Thursday on their CD day, that they're going to be having.
But as of this morning, NYSC had the INEC official in Lagos had spoken. I listened to it on the news saying that their monies they've been told and directed to pay those monies for the duty that they did, whether the election held or not.
No, let me tell you what happened in Lagos. Lagos was peculiar. They were supposed to have paid them 8,500 naira to all the core members initially. Then after the elections, they paid the balance of the money. Every other state paid 8,500. Lagos State paid only 4,500 now to the NYSC. Apart from the fact that they were now left to cater for themselves, there was even cases of some of them being raped in Apapa and in a few places. Yes, so the children, the NYSC is saying that, I mean, the core members have decided that they're going to have a protest, because I was talking to quite a number of them between yesterday and today, and they said they were going to have a protest on Thursday, and that they were not willing to go ahead with the elections on Saturday. I don't know how INEC is going to deal with that.
But there's not been an official statement from
this. I'm talking about
the guys on ground.
The guys on ground, not INEC, not NYSC as a body. Now the actual guys, because it wasn't like NYSC was told. It wasn't an official thing with NYSC. They just called them and said, if you want to do this. So it's not all NYSC that were mandated. It wasn't a mandate. So it was if you were interested in doing this.
Okay. And now this is our last segment and the last topic that we'll be discussing. Now the APC actually pointed fingers at the PDP, saying that, well, INEC released this information. That's part of the outcomes of the APC caucus meeting. They said, well, INEC actually revealed or disclosed that information about the postponement to the PDP, and now since the PDP is also going to be having their own emergency meeting as well, one of the issues they'll be touching on is the president's reaction and the APC's supposed pointing finger at them. How do you think this whole back and forth would also play out again? Will we just continue to see the blame game, or does that necessarily mean that INEC truly is autonomous or independent?
It's likely to happen that the PDP will in return accuse the APC, but I'm hoping that in these few days left to the elections that somehow people will rise above the pettiness of what we've seen on the campaign trails thus far and just encourage people to come out to vote, focus on the positives. I mean, trading blame over who said what, who leaked what, will not solve the problem.
But some are actually surprised that all of this blame game is going on, and then they believe that, well, maybe INEC is not even trying to satisfy any of these political actors. INEC is now trying to assume the role that it's named.
There will always be conjecture. There will always be conjecture, because if you remember, a few days before this postponed elections, I know there was a governor of a state that came out to say that this was going to happen, and there was a PDP governor. There was also an ex-PDP governor that alluded to the fact that an APC was in a meeting, and the outcome of the meeting will be the postponement of the elections. So if we keep trading blame and pointing fingers, it's going to only heat up the polity more and cause divisions. I mean, you saw what happened at the Lagos rally for APC the other day when one of the prominent stalwarts of the party was stabbed. You don't want to, and this is my concern about them lifting the bans on campaigning, because at some point in time there will be confrontations now. The stakes are higher, people are more intense, tensions are aflame. I'm hoping that in these last few hours, in these last few days, that the mudslinging will stop and people will just wait till the election day and then go and cast their votes as they should.
But I mean, away from what he's saying, the Nigerian politicking scene is always about mudslinging, trading blames. I mean, there's not necessarily an ideology that these people can actually, you know, speak on. So,
no, to be honest with you,
can we all of a sudden, can a miracle happen in
no, but it is happening. No, I mean, let's be frank.
Is it
the new crop of
politicians?
We're talking about issues. We're doing issue-based campaigning. Nobody's talking about mudslinging. No, that's not the point. The point is go out there and tell people what you can do differently.
But that happened a few days ago between your presidential candidate and candidate of the ANN when they were arguing about who has more votes. And it seemed a bit petty at some point. So, I mean, nobody's immune from this. This is a national malady that we have to find a way to cure.
Well, the truth is, you will have arguments. That's normal. That's a normal thing that will happen everywhere. There will be arguments, but that they will now break down into mudslinging and all that. It's a different.
I saw the Channels TV verdict, and it was.
All right. Well, it's been an interesting show this evening, of course, with mudslinging and, of course, governors speaking, giving death toll when security agencies have kept mum. It's been a potpourri of issues this evening, but we want to say thank you very much, Peter Igbedion, Watt Smith. He is a security consultant, and of course, Fumi Ayola Dosomu, YPP aspirant, House of Representatives, Surulere constituency. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. And this is where we say our goodbyes on the show.
That's where the cookie crumbles, definitely. That's all we can take on Nigeria Decides tonight. Join us again tomorrow as we look at other political stories and issues leading up to the election. It's just 4 days to go.
I have had a beautiful evening enjoying this passionate conversation.
Another day tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm David Alabi. Many thanks for watching. Bye for now.
Nigeria spends about $8 billion annually on the importation of vehicles. Although in the 1970s, passenger cars and commercial trucks were assembled in Nigeria, but this didn't last for a very long time, as production capacity in the capital-intensive plants began to drop drastically by late 1980s, leading to losses for the assembly plants. Commercial truck plants were even more affected, with market demand declining from 36,000 in 1977 to 14,440 by 1981. Another local assembly plant also saw its annual production drop from 29,300 in 1981 to less than 1,000 in 1989 and in 2005. The once booming sector, which created mass jobs and economic growth, was largely affected by corruption, epileptic power supply, government inconsistency, and a drop in oil prices. This led to an increase in importation of vehicles into the country. In a bid to reduce importation and boost local production, The government set an automotive policy in 2014, but this has not been very effective, as reports from the National Bureau of Statistics showed that Nigeria imported over 1.2 million new and used vehicles into the country between 2012 and 2017. Plus TV Africa spoke with local importer Mr. Kunle on the effects of this policy and prospects for growing the automobile industry in Nigeria.
Thank you for having us at yours. So how long have you been in the business of importation of vehicles, and how easy has it been for you?
I've been in the importation of cars for the past 15 years. And when I want to talk about being easy, bringing cars from abroad, it's been fine, but we still have a little challenge. First, we face the challenge of government, and we face the challenge of exchange rate as well. So these are the two challenges we have.
The National Bureau of Statistics said that from 2012 to 2017, Nigeria has imported that both new vehicles and Tokumba vehicles, that's fairly used vehicles, we've imported over 1.2 million cars into the country, and then annually we spend $8 billion on an average, right, on importation of vehicles, which is very high. What would you say the reason for these high figures have been?
Nigeria don't produce car. If Nigeria produce car, I don't believe we'll be spending so much money of bringing car from other country to our country. So if Nigerian government can be able to produce Nigerian-made car, I believe bringing car from abroad will reduce.
And following the auto policy, which said that for new vehicles, the tariff on it would be 70%, and then the tariff on fairly used vehicles would be 35%. How did it affect your business? Did it affect your businesses in any way?
The 70% increasement of duty, the only area I can say it affects our business is because the average Nigerian, the average Nigerian camp that buy car from us, they don't buy like the way they used to buy because of the prices. When we bring car in, the car we sell for, like, for example, initially we used to sell this Corolla 2004 model for 1.4 million naira, but when the increment goes for 75%, the car go higher to 2 million naira. So, and as I said, the little Nigerian guys, men, women, that just start their life, that want to get family car, they go for Corolla, easily using car, you know, but they cannot afford it because of the tariff. The only help I can tell Nigerian government to do for us is to please reduce the tariff of the importation.
In a bid to address the deficit in the economy, the Nigerian government initiated the National Automobile Industry Development Plan with the aim to attract foreign direct investment, curtail the dependence on importation of vehicles, and promote local production of automobiles. The introduction led to an increase in import tariffs for vehicles, attracting international car manufacturers and leading to the resumption of small-scale vehicle assembly. Although Nigeria boasts of having the first made-in-Africa automobile brand, Innocent Motors, importers like Kunle still think it is not readily available for purchase.
If you are telling me about Nigerian-made car now, I can't tell you where the office works, and I cannot even tell you I've seen one of the car. I only see it on the internet or on television. So that's the only thing I can say. If the man in question can be able to produce the car much for Nigerian to see, and he has a shop for it, a showroom for it, for people to come and access, to come and feel the car, I believe Nigeria, we patronize Nigerian-made car than bringing car from abroad. Because one, I believe it's going to be cheaper than buying from abroad. Second, you are not exchange naira to dollar to bring new car. So it means you are buying a Nigeria used car with our naira.
He spoke on ways the government can be of help.
So how do you think the government can support importation of vehicles and also rejuvenate the already existing manufacturing plants that are in the country but are not fully operational?
If Nigerian government can say, okay, today we want all the government officials to be using Nigerian used car, Nigerian made car. So I believe it's going to even increase the level of production of Nigerian-made car.
We have the Ajaokuta Steel Company, and I know that steel is a very important part of car manufacturing. How well do you think we've been able to maximize this potential and resource that we have here in Nigeria?
After Nigeria now, I don't think they know about what is called Ajaokuta. Even though they know about Ajaokuta, what did they produce? Nothing. We don't know. You understand? So government need to create awareness in everything they are doing so that the youth, okay, for example, some will say they went to school to go and read engineer, mechanical engineer. By the time they come out, nothing to show up on a mechanical engineer. They'll find themselves doing something else. And Ajaokuta still is there. So what's the company for? Is it not for the children that went to school to go and read engineer, to go there to go and do something? So everything still bounce back to government. If government really serious about the Ajaokuta steel, I believe Ajaokuta will produce a lot of things in this country. And many youth of this country will get something to do.
All right, thank you very much for having us at yours today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, madam.
Nigeria's electoral umpire INEC lifts the ban on political campaigns following Saturday's postponement of the 2019 elections by 1 week. Zimbabwe's President Mnangagwa shakes up the country's military, retires 4 army generals. EU warns President of swift retaliation if US imposes tariffs on EU car imports. Hello there and many thanks for joining us on the news on the hour on Plus TV Africa. Here are stories making headlines. I am Mary Anna Cohn. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has announced the lifting of the ban on political campaigns after it postponed elections by 1 week. INEC, at the end of its management meeting in Abuja, said all campaigns for the rescheduled presidential and National Assembly elections would end on Thursday. The APC and the PDP had said they would shun INEC's directives not to campaign, while many political analysts had faulted the Commission's position. The new directive allowing campaigns to continue is expected to be well received by stakeholders. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, on Saturday released a fresh timetable for rescheduled elections. INEC Chairman Professor Yaqub Mohammed released a new schedule of activities for the February 23 polls after he explained why the Commission postponed the presidential and National Assembly elections. He said in the light of the new development, the Commission had come up with a reworked scale of activities leading to the polls. Here are the activities INEC has lined up for the next few days. The Commission will work on the basis of the following plan: configuration of smart card readers Sunday the 17th to Thursday the 21st of February 2019, completion and confirmation of deployment of materials Monday 18th February 2019.